Hello and welcome everyone to this session with one of India's biggest bestsellers, Amish Tripathi. Welcome to the Car Festival. This is your first edition, I believe, to the biggest and most creative world of letters, thoughts and creativity. Our topic today is the creative retelling of myths and epics. Amish, to begin with, you always talk about old wine in new bottles. You have completely given it a new fizz and vigor by giving it a completely new bottle and new characters and new ingredients in the wine. So tell us why you started writing on the epics. Why did you choose the epics as your source of inspiration?
I think most of us Indians never tire out of listening to the stories of our gods and goddesses again and again and again and again. It's perhaps one of the reasons our culture is still alive. We are the only pre-Bronze Age culture that is still alive. The only one. Every other, pre-Bronze Age means minimum 5,000 years old. Every other culture that began its path to civilization with us, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Egyptians have even forgotten their ancient name. If you go to Egypt, you ask them what their ancient name was, they'll say Egypt, the Egyptians. Actually, their ancient name was Kem. They've forgotten everything, but we are still around. India is still around. I think part of it is because we never forget our stories. Let me prove this by a pop quiz. How many of you saw the Game of Thrones series? Yeah? Not that. I would have expected more, but not that many. Except for the last season. The last season was terrible. Right? I'd read the books as well. And how many of you saw the Ramayana television serial? Even if it was in Hindi, look at the numbers out here. Do you know that the Ramayana television serial was rebroadcast during the COVID era? Everyone knows that, right? In Doordarshan. It was a retelecast of a 30-year-old series. It was first broadcast when? 85, 86. And even 88, sorry. And even in those days, the special effects weren't that good. Remember the special effects, arrow coming from here, arrow coming from there, and yeah, I mean, even in those days, the special effects weren't good. And it was retelecast in the COVID era, okay? The final season, the final few episodes of the retelecast of a 30-year-old Ramayana telecast, just in India, got more viewers than Game of Thrones did worldwide. Game of Thrones did worldwide. Just Indians saw a retelecast of a 30-year-old series in more numbers. Applause for us Indians, yeah. We will never tire of hearing our stories again and again and again. Why? Because it connects us to us. And for any writer, I think it was Rajamouli ji who said that any real epic, in India, and he is one of the most rooted filmmakers we have. He said any real epic is essentially a version of either the Ramayana or the Mahabharata or one of the Puranas. And for us, this is because the stories are so beautiful. You can get lost in them. But even more than that, they are not just stories. You learn so much about life through them. You learn life lessons through them. You reconnect to your ancestors through them. You reconnect to your roots through them. It's one story that is stories rather, that are the carriers of our culture. And for any Indian writer to not explore this is, in my mind, among the stupidest things you can do. Because what are the options, right? Story about a boy and girl running around a tree or something. I mean, that is no point.
Well, the Mahabharata has got plenty of that, you will admit. A boy and girl running around trees. Like the Kalyana Saugandhigam, where Bhima goes in search of a flower. So moving forward, people say that there are 300 and more versions of the Ramayana in India and abroad. So Amish has brought out another 5 versions or 4 versions of the Ramayana we've had. Very humanized, with people with Rama and Lakshmana calling each other Dada and Sita being Bhabi. How easy or how difficult was it to humanize these characters and bring them, talk about them as if they were talking about in a modern era? You could be telling a 21st century story also, with Pushpak Vimans that run rotors and where people say fasten your seat belts before the Pushpak Viman lands. So how difficult or easy was it to turn it, giving this new twist to it and making them look very human indeed?
I think when a writer attempts something like this, it's either the most difficult job in the world or it's the easiest job in the world. It can never be in the middle. And it will be the most difficult job if a writer has the arrogance of thinking that I am the creator, I am the genius, I will decide where the story goes. It's the easiest job in the world if the writer realizes the actual truth, which is that he or she is only a channel. The story is coming from up above. I genuinely believe that my stories come from Lord Shiva. I know some people may find it strange. I don't care. This is the actual truth, and I've said it from when my first book was released. Because if I did have those creative skills, I would have shown some signs of it when I was in school or college. I didn't know fiction before, Immortals of Melua, nothing in school and college. Most of my school and college friends, in fact, I met someone from Lawrence School, most of my school and college friends who meet me, most of them ask, tell us the truth, who's actually written the books? Because I had shown no creativity when I was young. So I genuinely believe it's the blessings of Lord Shiva. And in terms of writing a different interpretation, this has been a rich tradition in India. Even the Mahabharata, for example, you have Bhima out here, of course, M.T. Vasudeva Nair Sahab, an Indian treasure. But even in our ancient era, yes, please, applause for, one of the mistakes we make in India is we don't translate enough. So what is a classic which every Malayali will know, people outside Kerala haven't heard of it. And even I just happened to pick up the book because I was at a Kochi airport. And I saw Bhima and this sounds interesting. And to my dismay, I had studied in Tamil Nadu, but I'd never heard of this. And I loved it. And I started reading more books of Nair Sahab. But there were many other, there are classics in Marathi, like Shivaji Savant's Mrityunjay, which should be translated into Malayalam. There are, classics from Tamil which should be translated into Hindi. We need to cross-pollinate. But sorry, that I digress. The point is that interpretations of our tradition, of Rama and Mahabharata, these stories, they go back to the ancient past. So Kalidasa had interpreted the birth of Lord Karthik very differently in the Kumar Sambhava. Bhasa, who was a great Sanskrit playwright, the greatest perhaps ever, he'd written a version of the Mahabharata called the Pancharatra, where the war didn't happen at all, right? But he did that to explore some philosophy. So this has been a rich tradition in India of different interpretations.
Yeah, we also have the Tulsidas Ramayana, we have the Kamba Ramayanam, then we have the Edutachin Ramayanam.
Absolutely.
So
the Kamba Ramayana from Tamil was actually the first of the devotional Ramayans. The Valmiki ji's Ramayana, remember Lord Ram sees himself as a human being in the Valmiki Ramayana. Because remember, Ravan had asked for a boon that he cannot be killed by the gods, he cannot be killed by Asuras, etc., Gandharvas. He only didn't include human beings because he said, how can a human being kill me? So Lord Vishnu had to be born as a human being. So the Valmiki Ramayana, the Kamba Ramayana was the first of the devotional Ramayans where he was clearly God, right? It's a different interpretation.
Yes, so but when you write about the Ramayana for a new generation of writers who may or may not have learned about the Ramayana from their elders or from writers, do you think that when you fictionalize them or you add your own narrative to it, that it might change the perspective of the Ramayana or the Shiva stories in your trilogy?
My books aren't that good. No. People will remember the originals. We have to...
Or perhaps egg them to read the originals?
Yeah, hopefully. Look, like I said earlier, we are the only pre-Bronze Age culture that is still alive. And I think it was Vaclav Mahler, if I remember correctly, who said this beautiful line. I'm paraphrasing. That traditions is not about the glorification of ashes. It's a preservation of fire. That's what traditions is actually. And what is fire? It has to be kept alive. Our ancestors, they lit the flame of our civilization millennia ago. And they are the only ones who kept the flame of our civilization alive. Every other culture, sometime or the other, their ancestors surrendered. We suffered invasions too, right? Terrible invasions. And our ancestors, our history is taught to us wrong, that our ancestors were cowardly and we lost battles. No, our ancestors were the biggest, toughest, bravest, buggers around, man. There was no one like them because everyone else surrendered. Zoroastrian Persia surrendered. Gilgamesh, Mesopotamia, they surrendered. Coptic Egypt surrendered. The Celts surrendered. Thor, you all heard of Thor? Yeah, in the Avengers series? Yeah, at least the kids would have.
Yeah,
Thor
yeah.
from Avengers. Do you know he was actually a Scandinavian god? Thor. Do the Scandinavians worship Thor anymore? No. The pagan Scandinavians surrendered. The only ones who did not surrender, who kept fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, were our ancestors.
Having
They kept
said
the
that,
flame alive. So our responsibility is to keep that flame alive and pass it on to the next generation.
True, it is true that that is true. But then, were you afraid of tackling something like the Ramayana or the Shiva stories? Because you remember, Aubrey Menon was one of the first writers to talk about the Ramayana in a modern sense, and that book is banned in India. So we are walking on very tricky ground where people are very sensitive to any kind of work to do with whom we perceive as gods, and Ram is worshipped as the gods. So were you worried about that, whether your book would become controversial? It became a bestseller, I know, but when you started, were you worried about the aftermath of how your book would be received and whether it would be banned or something like that?
Look, I can give a theoretical answer or I can give a real answer.
Real one, please.
I've been writing books and releasing books for 14 years now. My books have sold 7 million, at least legally, 7 million copies, pirated copies, a lot more. It's not really a secret. You can Google me. You Google me right now. You will not find any controversy on me. I've been doing it for 14 years, man.
Yeah, that's why
There's
I said,
no
when
controversy.
you started
So
the memoir.
my interpretation is often, I know there are writers and I know there are media guys here, don't take this the wrong way. Often artists themselves create controversy for publicity. It's sad, we all know it happens, right? If you yourself don't create controversy, it doesn't happen. Second thing, I think most Indians, even if they hear a different interpretation, if you can just instinctively tell that the interpretation has been done with respect. And if you do that, then there's no controversy, okay? One example is my book. Let me give another example from a movie, which is much more mass. Imagine if you went to Bollywood, to the Hindi film industry in Mumbai. And I have friends in there, many of them are very nice people, but it must be admitted, many of them, especially the younger ones, are not really rooted. You know, now it's become fashionable, so they go to temples. But you can make out, you know, with the left hand they are doing Rudrabhishekam. You can make out they've never done it in their life. They're just doing it for some Instagram photos. They're not really rooted, okay? Imagine if you go to a Bollywood film producer and you tell him, shoot a scene where the main hero of the movie breaks the base of a shivling and then carries the shivling on his shoulder and then goes and places it under a waterfall, okay? That Bollywood producer will tell you, have you gone mad? My house will burn down. But in the hands of a genuinely devout person like Rajamouli ji, when you see pictures of him, you can make out he's not pretending, he's done it all his life. He's actually a devout person. In the hands of a filmmaker like Rajamouli ji, this is one of the most iconic scenes in Indian cinema from Bahubali, right? So it's not about the scene itself, it's how you make it. And Indians can instinctively see that this has been made with respect, then there's no controversy.
Yes, but since we live
And the credit for that needs to go to Indians, actually. So you should applaud for yourself. We are willing to listen to a different point of view as long as it is done with respect, which is fair, yeah. Look, even if someone writes something about my faith, about Lord Shiva or Lord Ram, I wouldn't mind it if it was a different interpretation. My only request would be do it with respect. That's all. That's all.
But then there comes a question, should all creative writers look, because supposing you're writing a work of fiction, you may not want to approach it respectively or anything. You're just looking at a character named Ram and Sita, for instance. You may not see them as gods and you might want to give a different version. Don't writers have that creative freedom to write whatever they want? Isn't India a free country so that writers can write the kind of books that they want? What would you say to that?
They absolutely have the freedom to do that, except that in that case, there'll be controversies. And the good news is in India, if there's a controversy, the worst that will happen is someone will file a court case. Or maybe there'll be a protest. No one's going to land up at your house with an AK-47, right, and kill you. That happens in Paris. That doesn't happen in India, right?
So far it hasn't happened, touch wood.
No, but even if a controversy happens in India, we Indians, we are
tolerant.
We are normally sensible people. We don't really go on extremes, right? It's just that if you do that way, then controversies happen. Because if you say you have freedom of expression, someone else has the freedom of expression to not like it. And they can oppose it, fair enough. As long as you don't do violence, they have every right to oppose it. That's what freedom of expression means. The point I'm trying to make is if you're genuinely devout, as I am, I'm genuinely devout, right? I used to say I'm a proud Hindu before it was fashionable to say it. In 2011 in Jaipur Lit Fest, I said it, right? So, therefore, around my books, there are no controversies.
But to moving on, I just want to mention that Amish Ramayana series on Ram, Sita, Ravanan and Lanka war, he mentions Kerala in a lot of places. I was very interested to read that. He talks about Agastya Kudam, he describes Alapura. So he describes Shabrimala. In fact, he says Shabrimala Ji. So I asked him while we were sitting in the diner, I said, have you been to Shabrimala? So he said he has visited Shabrimala, not through the 18 steps, the Padanatam Padi as we call it, because he had not observed the fasting that is required to be a true Ayyappa devotee. Can you tell us a little bit about how stories have kind of engaged the whole of India in your stories? Because there is Mumbai, there is Madhya Pradesh, there is Nilgiris, there is a bit of northeastern India. So it's a very pan-Indian story. This is the age of pan-Indian cinema and your books seem to have touched upon a very pan-Indian scenario.
I think the entire point of stories is to bring us together. If you see the Ramayana, the original Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, it actually connects from north to south. And if you see the Mahabharata, in some ways it connects from the west in those days, which was Afghanistan, today's Afghanistan, all the way up to the east, up to Burma. So the Pathans are actually mentioned as characters, by the way. Pakhto they are called. I think if you have stories which bind our nation together, at least you're doing something positive with it. Steve Jobs had said that the most powerful job in the universe is that of a storyteller. Because if you're a storyteller, others give you that which is most precious, which is not their money. It's actually their attention, that they are actually listening to you. Now, most of you are listening to me out here. One person is looking at a phone, that's a little sad. But the rest of you are all listening to me.
You must have been Googling about what you said.
If someone is giving you the most precious gift they can give, which is their attention, then at least I think you earn good karma if you do something positive with it, right? You can use their attention for spreading hate, or you can use their attention for something positive, bringing our nation together. I really love India. I'm a very, very proud Indian. And if I can bring in parts, I had the privilege of studying in various parts of India.
Is it an utopian Melua that you're talking about in India that you're imagining of your dreams?
Utopia is a very dangerous concept where everything is perfect. There never is that way. But you shouldn't go to any extreme. But if there is a middle ground where all of us have mutual respect, then that's a good place to be in. Let me give you an example. I went to Padmanabha Swamiji this morning. And also had the privilege of visiting the palace and seeing the prince. The car that drove us, my friend Anand and I, the driver was a Christian, okay? So he had a cross hanging, on the rear view mirror. But on the dashboard, he had Adi Guru Shiva. And I got intrigued and I asked him. He said, no, I also follow Isha Foundation. So I'm inspired by Adi Guru Shiva as well. But I'm a Christian, I put the cross also. So I have the cross and Adi Guru Shiva. This is the India I love.
That's a
And I-
syncretic culture
and I-
that you're
and I
talking
tweeted about it. I tweeted about it. And the thing of mutual respect is actually what is truly special about us. We should not lose it. There are some ideas that, oh, you have to be pure. You know, I lived in London for 4.5 years. And I noticed that the London Marxists and communists are really hardcore, okay? And they're really extremist. And they tend to talk of Indian communists very derisively. Oh, they're not pure enough and all. Because we all know Indian Marxists, whatever they say publicly at home, they're all praying. We all know, right? We all know that. It happens.
Not all of them.
But most of them. We all know. It happens. This is India. But to me, that is a sign of our beauty. The fact that we are not Puritan, that we are willing to live with mutual respect, that gives our country tremendous strength.
Amish, because you talked about India's and Kerala's syncretic culture, I wanted to ask you, we seem to be living in a time where there is a lot of division and polarization between certain sections of society. So would your books be feeding into that soft Hindutva thing that we call it soft Hindutva? Would your books be feeding into that kind of a culture or a pop culture of trying to promote a certain way of living or a certain way of culture? There's a great deal of feeling that certain sections of society are being alienated. What is your thought on that?
Look, what's happening in India today is a vast and very quick change. I'd actually done a podcast on the 2000-year economic journey of India. You guys should check it out. It's there on YouTube, @author Amish, the 2000-year economic journey of India. For most of the first millennium, India was by far the wealthiest land on earth. William Dalrymple has also written a wonderful book on it, The Golden Road. You should check that out, right? And around the 11th, 12th century, we started stagnating. So for most of the first millennium, we are around 35, 36% of the world's GDP. Around the 11th, 12th millennium, we had come down to around maybe 26, 27%. By the 17th century, we'd come down to around 20%. And for the first time in the 15th century, China went ahead of us. Otherwise, we were always number one. Then the British came and we collapsed. We came down to 6% of the world's GDP. Our decline continued post 1947. Our lowest point in human history economically, okay? Economically was actually the late 1980s when we were just 2.5 to 3% of the world's GDP. We were that poor. In the late 1980s, just the American car industry, okay? General Motors, Ford Motors and Chrysler, just those three car companies made more money than all of India. We were that poor, right? And within 30 years, we have come back. Now we just crossed the GDP of a former colonial master, the UK. We are number 5 in the world right now, right? Applause for India. The kind of change that has happened in just 30 years, what we lost in a few centuries, we've regained in just 30 years. And the next 30 years will be even faster. What we lost in a millennium, we will gain back.
But
this pace of change always leads to social change as well. You see any society anywhere in the world. Everyone knows the Sagar Manthan story? Yeah, the churning of the ocean.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
Everyone knows.
When it throws
Those
up.
who don't know, in ancient times, okay, those who don't know, please Google. Okay, the gods, summary version, gods and the anti-gods, the devas and the asuras, churned the ocean. Lots of goodies came out. Right?
Also, but poison. And
but at the beginning, poison came out. Right. The Sagar Manthan story is actually a metaphorical story, a philosophical story that our ancestors left for us. Any process of change is like churning, is the churning of the ocean, right? And a process of change this massive is like we're churning all the 7 seas, right? And lots of goodies will come out. But as our ancestors told us, any process of change, poison will come up as well. It's a natural byproduct of the process of change. Now, anyone wants to raise their hand and say in the original Sagar Manthan story, when the poison came out, what happened? How is the poison handled? Yeah, this kid here, tell me. And his throat turned blue. Perfect. What's your name, beta? Abhijit, how old are you? 14 years. Abhijit got it spectacularly right. We have a good future. If our next generation is like this, we have a damn... Is she your mother? Ma'am, you must be so proud. Well done, Abhijit. He's absolutely right. The story was when the poison came out, Lord Shiva drank it, Goddess Parvati held the poison in here. That's why his throat turned blue, because only he could drink it, right? He ensured that the poison didn't hurt the others, and the goodies continued coming. So my suggestion to all of those who are Lord Shiva worshippers, all of us, how many Lord Shiva worshippers out here? Yeah? Good number. All of us who are Lord Shiva worshippers follow our God. There is a process of change happening right now. It will broadly be good, but some poison will come out. It's our duty to drink that poison up. Don't let it spread. It will not be good for our country. That poison coming out is natural. Of any process of change, it happens. Those of us who are Shaivites, others also should do it. Those of us who are Shaivites, follow our God. Drink up that poison. Don't add anything. Speak calmly. Speak softly. Bring people together.
What about non-Shaivites?
You can join too. like that wonderful Christian driver who's following Shiva as well.
No, but in Kerala, actually, all over India, I mean, it's not only Christians. I mean, we follow, we go to Bhima Palli, that's a mosque, and we go to the church, and we go to temples.
Yeah.
So that's what
Mount Mary Church in Mumbai,
yes, very popular.
Outside of a Sunday, has more Hindus and Muslims and Christians.
So I'm asking, is the current period that we're living in, is our syncretic culture in danger?
No.
Because we are pushing down a certain kind of thought of culture on people. Is it in danger?
India has never been a top-down culture. We are a bottom-up culture. No, it's not. You know why it's not? Because I have tremendous faith in the Indian people. We have a natural balancing. Look, if the balance gets pushed to such an extent where you can't even say proudly that I'm a Hindu, I'm a very proud Hindu, I don't hide it, okay, then the balance will push this way. But if the stuff gets pushed to another extreme, the balance will push this way as well. And that's what I just said. There's a process of change. Some poison will emerge, and therefore naturally those who will calm down this poison will also emerge. But that does not mean that we should deny our roots. We should not deny our roots. We have to keep this flame alive. It is a precious flame, the flame of our civilization, and it's good for the world. I've lived in the West, for 4.5 years. The only time I lived in the West. I traveled a great deal, but I've always been an India boy. Among the things that struck me in London when I lived out there for some 4.5 years is there are many good things in the West. Economic growth, individualism, liberalism, all very good. But much of that has also led to their societal chaos. Their society is breaking down, right? And a lot of that is because of a loss of balance. Let me give you an example here. There was a friend of mine, a white couple, right? Two friends, and they took me and my partner. They took me. They said we are going to a club. We went to a club. I thought it would be a club. It turned out to be a church that had been converted into a club. Okay, and there's a lovely kind of stained glass, painting of of Jesus Christ. And this guy, he was a white guy. It was his culture. He didn't seem offended. I'm not a Christian. I was offended. Ki yaar ye kya kar rahe ho yaar? Okay. And is that extreme a good extreme? No. Right? And that is a balance that our culture can teach, that you can be traditional and liberal at the same time. The West teaches this extreme that to be liberal, you have to burn all traditions. We can see the end result of that. It's not good. It's an epidemic of loneliness and societal chaos. Some countries in the Middle East are on the other extreme, that you can have traditions but no liberalism, no women's rights, no LGBT rights. That's not good either, right? India is one of the few lands that can teach our ancient culture is traditional and liberal. I'm not liberal because I'm westernized. I'm liberal because I'm proudly Indian, because I've actually read our scriptures.
But actually, Amish,
that is a precious flame to keep alive. We must keep that flame alive.
You have portrayed Sita as a warrior, a young woman who believes in equality and who takes on. In fact, she is portrayed as one of the Vishnus, along with Sri Ram. So, but is that true? Look at India. Look at the state of women in India. Where do we find Sitas? a handful of them. Most of them are so badly treated. Even the laws that are for them are not really being implemented. They really get the wrong end of the stick, isn't it? So is that a real picture of India, that we don't see many Sitas around us?
One of the problems with our education system is we don't teach enough about our own traditions. What is our most ancient scripture? The most Rig Veda? Yeah? Rig Veda is hymns written by rishis. Yeah? They're the Indian equivalents of the prophets and messiahs. There are hymns written by rishikas also in the Rig Veda. How many of you know that? Hymns written by rishikas. Only one woman knew it. This is so sad. The rest of you, please read those hymns. There's Maharishika, Lopamudra, Maharishika, Gargi. We had the equivalent of women prophets and messiahs in ancient India. Show me any other culture which had that. We had women who ruled in their own name, not because they were the wife of the king or the mother of the king. Like Rani Prabhavati Gupta, Rani Rudrama Devi from the south. The Travancore royal family had women rulers and male rulers.
Yes, but
right?
the majority of India is not like that.
Now this was the way India was for a long time. What do I think happened? Any society which has a lot of random violence tends to become patriarchal. You see this across the world. Okay, in the Middle East, the Kurds, for example, or the Yazidis used to be very equal. But once they faced a lot of random violence, they became more patriarchal. Why is that? Because my theory, women can compete with men in practically everything, except in physical strength. Okay? No, it's the truth. Okay? In fact, genetically, women are stronger actually. The Y chromosome is a rump. That's why men die earlier. We are genetically weaker. But in physical strength, men are stronger. Our bones are denser, we have more muscles, we have testosterone, right? Which women have a much lower quantity of. So physically, men are stronger, which is why in the West, a transgender, I don't know if I'm supposed to say transgender female, when a male becomes a female, trans female, or whatever. When he wrestles a woman, he or she will win, right? So when there is a society of random violence, you will always notice that society tends to become patriarchal. It's true across the world. Even in the Indian subcontinent, you will find those areas which suffered more invasions are more patriarchal. Have you noticed that? Northwest India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, which were India, right? Western India, which suffered far more invasions, they are far more patriarchal. Those which suffered less invasions, like South India, like East India, are less patriarchal, right? I think that's what happened in the last many centuries. The good news is we've been free for 75 years, random violence has come down. So let's revive our ancient culture. We are not being Western in seeing men and women as equal. We are actually being truly Indian, because that's what our ancient culture was about.
Amish, we're talking about recreating epics for a modern generation. You were telling me about a game that you are planning to come out with. Can you talk to us about that, the PlayStation that you're planning to come out based on the Ramayana?
How many of the kids out here play video games? So few. You, Abhijit, of course. Okay.
Children who play video games, or people who play video games.
No?
No? How many of us play video games?
Okay. Do you play mobile games or that proper AAA PlayStation types? Both. Okay. So, is proper AAA, PlayStation type games is actually a massive, I didn't know this, worldwide video games as an industry is bigger than Hollywood, music, book publishing combined. Okay. And so there's a British-French company called Tara Gaming. It's been started by people from Ubisoft, which is one of the biggest gaming companies in the world. They are making a game based on the Ramayana, a video game. So I've come on board, I've taken equity in that company, and we'll release a game in 2026. And it's a video game based on the Ramayana, and it'll be completely top end, like your Assassin's Creed or like absolute top end. But it'll be based on the Ramayana, and it will be respectful, obviously, I'm involved.
You keep...
And they're all British-French guys, basically. So I'm the Indian guy. And now they're opening an office in Pune as well.
But Amish, since you're one of a lot of fans, we saw the number of people who are coming to you, photographs and so on. What is your message for them when you reinvent or recreate an epic for a young reader? Because your new book is also in the offing. What is the kind of thing that you'd like to share with your readers about this? Because a lot of them will assume that this is the way to be. We have to go back and look into it and maybe weaponize the future and stuff like that. What would be your message to your impressionable readers?
Look, weaponization is a very loaded term. The only thing I'd like to say is there are many answers to the problems you face today. There are there in our ancient culture, okay? But not everything in the ancient culture has to be followed to the T. Some things can be changed, which is okay. Our culture has always done that. We keep the best of the old, but we add in some good of the new as well. And at least my Swadharma, I think my purpose in this life is to try and get what I understand of the wisdom of our ancestors to the youngsters in as understandable a way as I can. That's my Swadharma.
But you also talk about scientific reasons. For example, the bridge that Sri Ram is supposed to have built, the Setu Bandhanam, as we call it in Malayalam. So in that he describes the bridge as one that is built with floating stones and sinking wood, right? So was that something really based on your research, or was it that imaginative?
There's actual research. Okay, how many have been to Rameshwaram? Yeah? Have you seen the coral stones out there, the floating stones? Yeah? Now, many Indians who haven't been to Rameshwaram don't know that. I'd actually hosted a documentary for Discovery TV. There are stones out there which are essentially coral, when they calcify over millennia, they turn into stone. But they are coral, so they have air pockets. So they are actually very light. I could pick up a boulder of this size. I'm 50 years old. I'm not that strong. Okay? But I could pick up a boulder very easily. And those stones were so strong that the Portuguese built churches, okay, in the modern era, using those stones as load-bearing stones. So I put in a theory, could it be that these stones, because they were in that area, they're very strong and they're very light, could they have been used for the building of the Ram Setu?
So that is your addition to the...
My interpretation of scientific facts as I see it. Okay, even the usage of specific types of wood. Okay, this is a traditional Indian technique for building temples close to rivers. Okay, because what happens with wood? How many of you have noticed that the doors, that if you have a wooden door, a proper genuine wooden door, if you have a wooden door in your house, during the monsoons, you notice it becomes harder to open? Yeah? Why does that happen? Because the moisture actually makes that wood harder. Okay? So this is something that actually happens. Too much moisture starts destroying it. Too little moisture keeps it dry. Just the right amount of moisture actually makes it harder. Our ancestors figured that out. They used to use that for the foundations for building temples. Even the Taj Mahal. How many have been to the Taj Mahal? Yeah. Do you know the foundations of the Taj Mahal use the same technique? Okay.
Wood, is
they
it?
got wood and they buried it deep, and that's the actual foundation. So the Yamuna waters, when it floods, okay, if there was stone, it could have cracked the stone. But since it's wood, like your wooden door, it strengthens it. So I thought if our ancestors knew it, how about if they used it for the Ram Setu as well? So I've used actual scientific stuff in my interpretation for how the bridge could have been built.
So that is your input for the epics.
That's my input
right?
for the epics.
And also the Pushpak Viman, which has sliding doors and rotors and motors to lift it up and so on. So also tell me, like, when you even talk about the, we know that Hanuman, we call him, he was supposed to be a kapish. So, but then you describe him as a human being who is just differently abled or stuff like that.
In the Valmiki Ramayana, the term kapish is not used. The term used is vanar.
In a forest dweller?
Yeah, kapish, exactly. And one Sanskrit interpretation of that could be someone who's living in the forest. The term kapish, at least from what I'm aware, kapish clearly means monkey. But from what I'm aware, at least from all that I have read, I've seen its use first time in Goswami Tulsidas ji's Ramcharitmanas, which was written in the 16th century, and in the Hanuman Chalisa. So I interpreted, could it be that maybe they weren't monkeys actually, maybe they were forest dwellers. And was that what Valmiki ji was trying to say? That's the interpretation I've used. What's the truth? Only Lord Shiva and Lord Ram know. Is this my interpretation?
Why is it that you haven't touched upon the Mahabharata? Since you've
I'll come
already...
to it.
So you are coming out with your own interpretation of the Mahabharata
Yeah,
as well.
I will.
What about your... what about the documentaries and the work that you do as a podcaster and the how do you plan to take it in the future?
I was there's a TV company called Discovery TV, which is kind of there worldwide. I was approached by them around 3.5, 4 years back, and they asked me to host a documentary for them. I've never been in front of camera, so I didn't think I could do it. But I thought, why not? Chalo, try karte hain. And I took some advice and help from a filmmaker friend of mine, Shekhar Kapoor, who's a very brilliant filmmaker. He gave me some advice. So I hosted that series. To my surprise, the series was actually a huge hit. And it was the biggest hit for Discovery TV from their India programming anywhere. And it won a lot of awards as well. So I thought, okay, maybe I might enjoy this as well. So I've started producing and hosting documentaries. So there's a documentary called Ram Janmabhoomi, Return of a Splendid Son, which my company produced and I hosted. You can see it on Jio, and it's there on Jio in English and Hindi. It's free to see. It was one of the most watched non-fiction shows.
But the Ram
not just a
Janmabhoomi
documentary.
is controversial to a lot of people, isn't it?
Do I do controversy? No, so it's not controversial at all. That documentary is the 4th most watched non-fiction show of 2024, according to Ormax Media. There are only 3 non-fiction shows that beat us, which is Big Boss, Kapil Sharma Show, and Shark Tank. And those are more mass programs. They don't really do. So in terms of documentaries, this was the highest watched by far.
But Amisha,
and there's no controversies around it. You can see it on Jio. There's a version I did, another documentary with Discovery TV called Journey of India, where I was a co-host with Amitabh Bachchan Saab. There's another documentary coming out on Lord Shiva, the 2nd season of the Discovery TV Ramayana thing. That will come out in a few months. And a documentary on Kumbh, which I have hosted. I was in Prayagraj till yesterday. That will also come out by the 10th. So lots of stuff.
yes,
I'm
lots of
in
stuff.
front of the camera.
I'm just again dwelling upon, sorry
I'm
to
a
go
workaholic.
back. I'm just going back to the Ram Janmabhoomi because it is built on controversial, it was built around a controversy. There was still a lot of bad blood among certain people. There's still a lot of second thoughts. Were you nervous about bringing out something like that, thinking it might create more polarization in society? Any second thoughts about like that?
Not at all. While I follow my heart. And when we made the documentary and when we released it, and with all this success, again, you can Google, you'll find no controversy around it. And let me answer your question with the words of a great son of Kerala, actually, called K.K. Mohammed Saab. How many have heard of K.K. Mohammed, a legendary archaeologist? Yeah. So we interviewed him also. We interviewed practically everyone who had anything to do with the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, from L.K. Advani ji to Gurudev Shri Ravi Shankar, who had the reconciliation committee, to Chief Justice Bobde, who passed the. So anyone you can, and on all sides, Barkha Dutt also, and so on all sides. And K.K. Mohammed Saab said this wonderful thing to me when we were interviewing him. He said, I'm an Indian Muslim. Babar was from Uzbekistan. Okay. He didn't know a word of any Indian language. He was a foreigner. And K.K. Mohammed Saab said it so beautifully. He said, the Ram Janmabhoomi ji is not a Hindu-Muslim issue. It's an Indian foreigner issue. It's about Indians being oppressed by a foreign invader who came. He said, I'm an Indian Muslim. What do I have to do with an Uzbeki? And to me, that was such an eye-opening insight. And we actually made the documentary that way. This is actually not a Hindu-Muslim issue. This is an Indian foreigner issue. And do you know that there was the main litigant in Ayodhya who filed the case from the Muslim side, gentleman called Iqbal Saab? He'd actually said publicly, when he filed this case, he said, if it can be proven to me that there was indeed a Lord Ram temple out here, which Babur demolished, I will come for the inauguration of the temple. And this went through a full court case where it was proven that there was indeed a temple there. Iqbal Saab was actually there during the Pran Pratishtha. He'd been invited and he was there at the temple. Right? To me, that is what India actually means. We are reconciling wounds of the past. In my opinion, in such a beautiful way.
I think Amish has talked enough. I'm sure you're all hearing, waiting to ask him questions. Please be crisp with the question. Please let it be a question, not a statement of your views. Because time is running out and I'm sure you would all love to talk to him more. So please give one question on, just ask one single question.
And I'd love to eat
very
food
crisp,
as well.
very crisp, please. Thank you.
Hi, sir.
Whoever. Yes, hi.
Sir, some believe that the 8th avatar of Vishnu is
Gautam
Balram and 9th avatar is
Balram and
Sri Krishna, and some believe that the 8th avatar is Sri Krishna and 9th avatar is Buddha.
Yeah.
Sir, how do these interpretations come?
Yeah, you're right. Yes, in the north, it's believed that the 9th avatar is Gautam Buddha and the 8th avatar is Lord Krishna. From what I know in the south, it's believed Lord Krishna and Lord Balram. This to me is, I think, another evidence of Indian liberalism because we respect different truths. Okay? So I'm in South India. So if I ask pop quiz question, Lord Karthik, was he married? How many will say yes? Lord Karthik was married? Yeah. What are the names of his wives? Valli ji and Sena ji. Lord Karthik is married? Yeah. How many North Indians here? Any North Indian? No? I'm the only one. So I'll answer it. In North India, Lord Karthik is a bachelor. He's not married. In fact, it is so strict that women don't even enter Lord Karthik temples. Okay? But in the south, Lord Karthik is married. Happily married with 2 wives. Okay? I discovered this when I came to the south to study in the 4th standard. Okay? I studied in Lawrence School in Tamil Nadu. And I'd gone back and I told my mother, Arey, what is this? You told me Lord Karthik is a bachelor. I see here that he has 2 wives. What is going on? And my mother told me something that is so Indian. That ekam sat vipra vahuda vadanti. Truth is one, but the wise speak it as many. This is in the Rig Veda. Right? So we all have a right to our different truths as long as we respect each other's right to have their truths as well. And if we are truly wise like my mother is, okay, in the north, when she goes to a Lord Karthik temple, she doesn't enter. Because in the north, she believes he's a bachelor. What do you think she does in the south when she comes here? She enters. Because out here, he has 2 wives, no problem. Correct. The truly wise people can even hold opposing views in their mind and see the beauty of both. And our ancestors were truly wise.
Namaste, sir. I am Abhijit, studying in Kendriya Vidyalaya Pangod in 9th grade. So before I ask my question, I have to appreciate your effort in writing the Ravan book from Ramchandra series. That's my favorite in the series.
Thank you.
Like, then only I knew the truth about the Ravan's backstory and all. Like, it was very different than the cliche Ramayana story. When I read that, I recollected, I remembered a phrase in Malayalam. In Malayalam, we say Adagiya Ravanan, which means like it describes how beautiful Ravan was. But in the stories and all, it is said that Ravan was not that good-looking person and all. So coming to my question, as you earlier told about the game, Ramayana game, so I have a suggestion to you that my question is, why not we make a game about Mahabharata? Because like, just like the god of war and all from the Greek mythology, Mahabharata is like, it's more intense with, war and fight and all. So like, it's like a game, it deserves to be a game, right?
Next game after this one, and I'm sure this will be a big success, it'll be based on the Mahabharata. On Ravan, I should tell you something interesting. You know, the oldest temple to Ravan are actually not in South India. It's actually in the north, close to Delhi. Ravan was born close to Delhi. The original ruler of Ranka was actually Kuber. Ravan was born in a place called Vishrak, which was named after his father, Vishrava, which is just next to Noida. So essentially, Ravan was a Brahmin boy from Delhi. Hence also the anger management issues, all the Delhi blood.
Just curious to know, Amish, your take on the caste system, your opinion on caste system, which we have kind of inherited through the millennia.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. Okay?
The caste.
The caste system.
Yeah.
You know, I think the best exposition of this, there's a book by Dr. Ambedkar called Who Are the Shudras? How many have read that book? How many of you? Okay. The youngster has read it. I'm very impressed. Those who haven't, please read. You know, one of the sad things about India is often we look and idolize our leaders, but we don't read what they've written. So we don't understand their thoughts. And Dr. Ambedkar was a brilliant economist, a brilliant scholar. He's written many books, right? So in Who Are the Shudras, he had this basis textual evidence. He had suggested that actually there was heavy intermingling among all communities till around 1500, somewhere between 1000 to 1500 years ago, or 1500 to 2000 years ago, which actually shows that the caste system was actually weak. And he also believed that many of the Shudras were actually rulers who are called Shudras today. The Mauryas began as goat herds, for example, right? Interesting thing is modern genetic studies is also showing that there was heavy intermingling among all Indian caste groups till endogamy began approximately around the same time that Dr. Ambedkar had. But Dr. Ambedkar hadn't quoted genetic studies. Obviously, at that time, genetic knowledge wasn't available. He'd quoted texts, ancient texts that he'd read. But genetic studies are also showing that there was heavy intermingling among all Indian groups. That's why all of us are actually mixtures of various different Indian gene groups, all of us, right? And if you read our ancient texts as well, our ancient rulers, many of our greatest dynasties were actually not quote-unquote Kshatriya dynasties. Our biggest empires were actually what would be called Shudras today, right? The Bhagavad Gita, in that Lord Krishna has this line, Chaturvanyam Maya Shrushtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha, that he created the four varnas based on guna and karma. Birth is not mentioned anywhere, right? So, and again you find many examples in the Valmiki Ramayana. There is the royal priest, the Purohit of Lord Ram, which is a very, very senior role, was a rishi called Satyakam Jabali. Okay, he'd written an Upanishad as well, the Jabali Upanishad. Satyakam Jabali was the son of a single Shudra mother. Okay, but he became a rishi. So could it be that Dr. Ambedkar was right, that actually it wasn't rigid and it became rigid around maybe 1500 years ago? And to me that also tallies with a few centuries later, we started losing to invaders. There was a time when India was considered unconquerable, right? Invaders used to come, we used to beat all of them back. And then from the 11th century onwards, we started losing to every invader, you know. So to me, these are lessons that perhaps we have to explore and read the scholarly works that many of our leaders have put up. That the theory that perhaps makes sense to me is that actually it wasn't rigid, there was heavy intermingling till maybe around 1500 years ago, and then it started slowly ossifying. And we must turn that back. It is not only adharmic, it weakens our society. Is that it? Okay. Yeah, those I couldn't answer. I'm really sorry. I know some hands were raised. Really sorry. But I'm getting hungry also.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Amish. That
Thank
was
you.
very entertaining and informative
Thank
at the
you.
same time. And I'm sure it is entertaining also.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for talking about your books.